What if I told you that some of the most unbelievable technologies you've seen in sci-fi movies were actually being developed in secret military labs decades ago? Projects so advanced, so hidden, that when they were finally declassified, even experts struggled to believe they were real. Today, we're diving deep into genuine military projects that were once top secret, pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're documented operations backed by government records and historical evidence. From mind control experiments straight out of a dystopian novel to aircraft that defied the laws of physics. So, buckle up, because we're about to explore the thin line between science fiction and classified reality. Let's start with perhaps the most infamous secret program in American history, Project MKUltra. Imagine going to a hospital for a routine treatment, only to wake up days later with no memory of what happened. Imagine being dosed with powerful drugs without your consent, all in the name of national security. This was MKUltra. In the early 1950s, the Cold War was at its peak. The CIA was terrified by reports that American prisoners of war were being brainwashed by communist forces. The agency became convinced the Soviets and Chinese had developed advanced mind control techniques. Their response: we need them to, and we need them to be better. On April 13, 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles approved Project MKUltra. The goal was terrifyingly simple: to develop techniques for controlling human behavior. The official mission was to create a truth serum for Soviet spies, but it quickly morphed into something far more disturbing. Under Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, MKUltra became one of the most unethical research programs ever conducted by the U.S. government. The program had over 150 sub-projects at more than 80 institutions, including universities and hospitals, most of which had no idea they were working for the CIA. The experiments were shocking. Subjects were given LSD without their knowledge. Patients in hospitals were dosed repeatedly, sometimes for months, as the CIA tried to see if they could break down a person's personality and rebuild it from scratch. At McGill University in Montreal, Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron subjected patients seeking help for minor issues like anxiety to what he called psychic driving. He put them into drug-induced comas for weeks, playing looped messages designed to implant new thoughts. Patients also received massive electroshock therapy, sometimes at 40 times the normal power. Many lost all memory of their past lives. The CIA also explored sensory deprivation, torture, and over 100 different drugs. The program ran in secret for over 2 decades. In 1973, as the Watergate scandal unfolded, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all MKUltra files destroyed. Most were burned, but due to a filing error, about 20,000 documents survived. In 1975, the Church Committee investigating illegal CIA activities discovered them. The revelations shocked the nation. The human cost is impossible to calculate. One famous victim was Frank Olson, a CIA biochemist who was secretly dosed with LSD. 9 days later, he fell to his death from a hotel window. His death was ruled a suicide, but his family fought for the truth, and forensic evidence later suggested he may have been murdered. Today, MKUltra stands as a dark reminder of what happens when government agencies operate without oversight. Now, Let's shift from the dark world of mind control to the incredible SR-71 Blackbird, an aircraft so advanced it was essentially invulnerable. Picture it, 1964. The Soviet Union has just shot down an American U-2 spy plane. The U.S. needed a new reconnaissance aircraft that couldn't be shot down. The answer came from Lockheed's legendary Skunk Works, led by the brilliant engineer Clarence Kelly Johnson. What they created was nothing short of revolutionary. The requirements seemed impossible. Fly above 85,000 feet, faster than Mach 3, that's over 2,200 miles per hour, and be undetectable by radar. Kelly Johnson and his team had just 2 years to make this sci-fi dream a reality. Every single part of the SR-71 required new innovation. At Mach 3, air friction would heat the plane's skin to over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Aluminum would melt. The only option was titanium. But there was a problem. The biggest supplier of titanium was the Soviet Union, the very nation the plane was designed to spy on. The CIA had to set up dummy corporations to secretly buy Soviet titanium to build a plane to spy on the Soviets. The irony was incredible. The engineers even had to invent new tools and welding techniques. Even the fuel was special. Regular jet fuel would ignite at those temperatures, so they developed JP-7, a fuel so stable you could throw a lit match in it and it wouldn't burn. The engines were marvels. At high speeds, they transformed into ramjets, using the aircraft's own speed to generate most of the thrust. And the SR-71 was designed for stealth. Its distinctive shape and special iron ferrite paint were made to absorb and scatter radar waves. But the Blackbird's real secret to invulnerability wasn't just stealth. It was pure speed. From 1966 to 1998, the SR-71 flew over 3,500 operational missions. It was shot at more than 1,000 times. Not a single one was ever shot down by enemy fire. The standard evasive maneuver when a missile was launched was simply to accelerate. The plane could literally outrun any missile. The SR-71 set records that still stand today. In 1976, it flew from New York to London in under 2 hours. It holds the absolute speed record for a manned air-breathing jet at 2,193 miles per hour. But here's the kicker. Those are the official records. Its true maximum performance remains classified. The SR-71 was retired in 1998, not because it was obsolete, but because satellites had taken over. Even today, nothing matches its capabilities. It proved that sometimes the best defense is being so far ahead that no one can even touch you. Thanks for joining us on this journey into declassified reality. If you were as amazed as we were, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. See you in the next video. What happens when the military decides to detonate a nuclear weapon in space? If your first thought is, that sounds like a terrible idea, well, you'd be absolutely right. But that didn't stop the United States from doing exactly that in 1962, in an experiment called Starfish Prime. This wasn't just a test, it was an attempt to weaponize space itself, to see if a nuclear blast could knock out enemy satellites and missiles. The results were spectacular, devastating, and taught us lessons we're still grappling with today. To get why they did this, you have to picture the early space race. The Soviets launched Sputnik in '57, and suddenly, space became the ultimate high ground. Both superpowers started asking wild questions. Could a nuke in space create a radioactive shield to vaporize incoming missiles? Could it fry enemy satellites? These weren't just theories. Military leaders thought a nuclear war was practically guaranteed, and they were desperate for any edge, no matter how risky. Starfish Prime was part of a series called Operation Fishbowl. What happened next blew everyone's minds, even the scientists who planned it. A massive artificial aurora lit up the sky, visible over 800 miles away in Hawaii. People in Honolulu saw the night sky blaze with brilliant reds, greens, and blues, thinking it was fireworks or maybe even an alien invasion. But the light show was the least of it. The explosion unleashed a colossal electromagnetic pulse, or EMP. It wasn't a theory, it was the real deal, and it was devastating. Back on the ground in Hawaii, streetlights died. Burglar alarms went haywire. Phone systems crashed. But the real chaos was happening in orbit. The blast created artificial radiation belts around the Earth, trapped clouds of high-energy particles. Within months, these belts started killing satellites. 7 were damaged or destroyed, including Telstar 1, the world's first commercial communications satellite, which had been launched just one day before the test. The radiation from that single blast lingered for over 5 years, a lingering ghost in our planet's magnetosphere. As destructive as it was, Starfish Prime gave us priceless data. We learned that the effects of a nuke in space were way more complex than anyone imagined. And we learned just how terrifying an EMP could be. Planners realized a single high-altitude blast could throw an entire continent back to the Stone Age by wiping out its electronics. This knowledge led directly to the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, which banned nukes in orbit. But the threat remains. Imagine that happening today, with our total dependence on GPS, the internet, and power grids. Starfish Prime proved that space could be weaponized, but it also opened a Pandora's box that we are still struggling to keep shut. Now, from the terrifying to the utterly bizarre. What if I told you the CIA once spent over $20 million trying to turn cats into walking, meowing surveillance devices? Yes, you heard me. In the 1960s, a project called Acoustic Kitty was born. The idea came from the CIA's tech division. They thought, Soviet officials are always sweeping for bugs, but they'd never suspect a cat. It sounds crazy, but on paper, maybe not completely. We've used dogs, dolphins, and pigeons in warfare for centuries. Why not cats? Well, the how is where things got really weird. Vets performed invasive surgery, implanting a tiny microphone in the cat's ear canal, a transmitter in its chest, and weaving a wire antenna along its spine. The cat's tail acted as the aerial. After weeks of recovery, they had a cyborg cat, ready to spy for its country. There was just one giant purring problem. Cats are cats. They don't take orders. They don't care about national security. If they want a nap in a sunbeam or chase a mouse, that's what they're going to do. The CIA tried everything to train them, but apparently no one on the team had ever actually met a cat before. The project culminated in a field test near the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. 2 Soviet officials were sitting on a park bench. The plan: release the cat, let it casually stroll over, and listen in. So, CIA agents released their furry little spy. What happened next is the stuff of legend. The cat, completely ignoring the targets, wandered into the street and was immediately hit by a taxi. The mission lasted about 5 minutes. 5 years of research, millions of dollars, all for nothing. The project was officially canceled in 1967. A declassified memo dryly stated that training cats was basically impossible. Acoustic Kitty is now a legendary example of how even brilliant people can chase an absurd idea. They were so focused on the tech, the tiny microphones, the complex surgery, they forgot to ask the most basic question: will a cat actually do this? It's a hilarious footnote in Cold War history, but it's also a reminder that for every super-secret, successful project, there are plenty of failures hidden away out of pure embarrassment. So, next time you see a cat, just remember, the CIA once thought it could be their top agent. The cat, of course, couldn't have cared less. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into top-secret history, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. See you then. For our final secret project, we're diving into one that's still running, still sparking debate, and still fueling countless conspiracy theories. HAARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Now, unlike some wild theories, HAARP is very real. It's a massive field of antennas in Alaska, pumping incredible amounts of radio energy into the upper atmosphere. The big question is, what is it really for? Imagine this. Deep in Gakona, Alaska, a grid of 180 antennas, some towering over 70 feet tall, covers 33 acres. This isn't your local radio station. Together, these antennas can generate over 5 gigawatts of power. That's more than 100,000 times stronger than the most powerful commercial radio stations. It looks like a set from a sci-fi movie, which is exactly why it's become a magnet for suspicion. Officially, HAARP is for science. The military and university researchers say its purpose is to study the ionosphere, that electrically charged layer of our atmosphere from 50 to 600 miles up. Why care about the ionosphere? Because it messes with our GPS, radio signals, and satellites. By heating small patches of it with radio waves, scientists can study how it behaves, helping to improve our technology and protect it from space weather. That's the official story. Now, let's get into why so many people aren't buying it. The list of things HAARP has been blamed for is staggering. Conspiracy theories claim it's a secret weapon used to control the weather, creating hurricanes and tornadoes. It's been accused of triggering devastating earthquakes in Haiti and Japan. Some even say it's a mind control device, can shoot down planes or open portals to other dimensions. These ideas are so widespread that even government bodies have had to address them. So where did all this come from? Well, the concerns aren't entirely pulled from thin air. The project was originally funded by the U.S. Air Force, Navy, and DARPA. Whenever the military gets involved in atmospheric research, eyebrows are going to raise. Plus, a physicist named Bernard Eastlund filed patents back in the 80s for a technology that could heat the ionosphere, with potential uses like weather modification and disrupting communications. While HAARP operators deny using his designs, those patents poured gasoline on the fire of speculation. So, let's separate fact from fiction. What can HAARP actually do? It can temporarily heat a small section of the ionosphere, about 30 miles across by a few degrees. It can also create faint artificial auroras, like a man-made northern lights. But here's what it absolutely cannot do: control the weather. Weather happens in the troposphere, miles below the ionosphere. Trying to change the weather with HAARP is like trying to boil a pot of water by heating your roof. It's just not physically connected. It also can't cause earthquakes. Quakes happen deep underground where radio waves from HAARP can't possibly reach. And mind control? Not a chance. The energy is focused hundreds of miles up and dissipates long before it gets anywhere near our brains. The energy required to do any of these things, control a hurricane or move a tectonic plate, is mind-bogglingly huge, equivalent to thousands of nuclear weapons. HAARP is powerful, but it's not defy the laws of physics powerful. So why do these theories stick around? First, HAARP just looks intimidating. It's a massive, mysterious array in the middle of nowhere. Second, the science is complicated. It's much easier to grasp a scary story about a weather weapon than the nuances of plasma physics. And third, there's a genuine distrust of secretive military projects. History has shown that governments do keep secrets. When a disaster strikes, it's human nature to look for a cause, for someone to blame. Pointing a finger at a mysterious government facility can be more comforting than accepting the terrifying randomness of nature. Despite the conspiracies, HAARP has produced real, valuable science. It's improved our understanding of how radio waves travel, helped us protect satellites from solar storms, and even advanced over-the-horizon radar technology. Since 2015, the facility has been run by the University of Alaska Fairbanks. It's open for tours, and research from scientists all over the world is published openly. If it were a secret superweapon, it would be the worst-kept secret in history. While it's always wise to question powerful technologies, the evidence shows HAARP is a tool for science, not a doomsday machine from a sci-fi blockbuster. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of secret projects. If you enjoyed unraveling these mysteries with us, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you in the next video. Now, HAARP doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's part of a global network of atmospheric and space research facilities. Russia has its Sura ionospheric heating facility. Europe has ESCAT, with sites in Norway, Sweden, and Finland. Peru even has the Jicamarca Radio Observatory. These places often collaborate, with scientists from different countries running experiments at each other's sites. This kind of international cooperation doesn't really fit the narrative of a top-secret American superweapon, does it? And let's apply some common sense here. If HAARP could truly control the weather or trigger earthquakes, why would the United States ever suffer from devastating hurricanes, tornadoes, or quakes on its own soil? Why would it allow its allies to be hit by natural disasters? The conspiracy theories don't just require technology that borders on magic. They also require its users to be both incredibly malicious and bafflingly incompetent. The whole HAARP saga teaches us a few things. First, looks matter. That giant field of antennas looks imposing, even threatening. So, people assume it's a threat. If the project's purpose had been communicated more clearly from the start, decades of conspiracy theories might have been avoided. Second, Military involvement in research that looks civilian always creates suspicion. And, to be fair, with historical programs like MKUltra, that suspicion isn't entirely baseless. The problem is that legitimate, important research can get unfairly painted with the same brush. Third, scientific literacy is crucial. If you have a basic understanding of physics, the HARP conspiracy theories just don't hold up. The fact that they've persisted for so long highlights a real gap in public science education. And finally, transparency helps, but it isn't a magic bullet. Even after HARP was handed over to a university and started holding open houses for the public, the conspiracies continued. Once a false belief takes root, it's incredibly difficult to dislodge, even with overwhelming evidence. Today, HARP is operated by the University of Alaska Fairbanks. It's a world-class research facility available to scientists from all over the globe. They have regular open houses, and the data from their experiments is publicly available. The conspiracy theories are still out there, but they've lost a lot of steam as the facility has become more open. The tinfoil hat crowd has largely moved on to newer targets, like 5G towers or CERN's Large Hadron Collider. In the end, HARP remains one of our most important tools for studying the ionosphere. It has contributed immensely to our understanding of the space environment right above our heads. And it serves as a powerful reminder that sometimes the simple truth, in this case complex atmospheric physics research, is a lot less exciting than the wild fiction of an all-powerful weather control weapon. So, there you have it. 5 secret military projects that sound like they were ripped straight from the pages of a science fiction novel. We've journeyed through the dark corridors of MKUltra, the CIA's chilling mind control program. We've soared to the edge of space in the SR-71 Blackbird, an aircraft so futuristic it still feels impossible. We witnessed Starfish Prime, a moment when humanity casually detonated a nuke in space, learning some terrifying lessons in the process. We had a laugh at Acoustic Kitty, the absurd attempt to turn cats into furry little spies. And finally, we demystified AARP, a real research facility that conspiracy theories twisted into a fictional superweapon. Looking back, you start to see some common threads. First, the line between what's possible and what's impossible is always moving. The SR-71 was impossible, right up until it wasn't. MKUltra chased the impossible and failed disastrously, and HARP is still accused of doing the impossible, even though it isn't. Second, secrecy breeds speculation. The less we know, the more our imagination fills in the gaps. Sometimes, as with MKUltra, the reality is far more disturbing than any theory. Other times, like with the Blackbird, reality is more awe-inspiring than fiction. And sometimes, as with HARP, reality is just boring old research, but secrecy makes it seem sinister. And of course, these are only the projects we know about because they've been declassified. What secret projects are happening right now that will seem just as unbelievable when they're revealed in 30 years? We know that hypersonic weapons, AI-driven drone swarms, and advanced cyber warfare capabilities are all in development. But what's the next SR-71? The next MKUltra? History suggests that when today's secrets are finally revealed, we'll find a mix of triumphs, tragedies, and pure absurdity. This all leads to a tough question. How do we balance the need for military secrecy with public accountability? MKUltra shows the horrific consequences of unchecked secret programs. But the SR-71 shows that secrecy can also enable incredible achievements that protect national security. There's no easy answer. It's a constant challenge for any democracy. As we rocket forward into an era of AI, quantum computing, and biotechnology, the projects we've talked about today might start to seem quaint. Future generations might look back at our fears about HARP and laugh, the same way we chuckle at the idea of Acoustic Kitty. They were worried about that? How primitive. Ultimately, these 5 stories teach us that reality is often stranger, more complex, and more fascinating than fiction. They remind us to be skeptical of both official stories and wild conspiracy theories. The truth is usually somewhere in the middle. Technology itself isn't good or evil. What matters is how we choose to use it and who we trust to oversee it. The future is being built right now, in secret labs and facilities we don't even know exist. Some of those projects will make us safer. Others will become cautionary tales. The projects we've explored today were once the cutting edge. Now, they are history lessons. The question is, what will the history lessons of tomorrow be? Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep exploring that fascinating line between science fiction and classified reality. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Thanks for watching.